is pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Have to return some videotapes. 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 Have to return some videotapes.
Hey, welcome back to Strange Glow Video. My name is Justin. With me is my co-host extraordinaire, Alec. How you doing?
What's going on?
You know, we're in a day before the election, so this could be the last time this country is habitable. We don't know. Things could be drastically
Don't remind me.
messed up tomorrow. Which is coincidentally enough, there's some jokes made about actors being politicians in this movie that we're going to cover tonight, and it's a lot more grotesque than that in real life. But yeah, we're going to cover the classic film from 1985, Back to the Future.
Hey, is your mic? Check your settings. Is your mic what it's being used right now on the thing?
Let me double check it.
It sounds like it could be a room mic. It doesn't sound awful. It just sounds like a room mic, not like the microphone in front of your face.
Stand by.
But anyway, yeah, we watched Back to the Future. I watched this copy, which is a print from 1994. I thought I had the McDonald's copy of this, but I guess I don't. I have the McDonald's copy of Wayne's World, however, though.
Is that any better?
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, for whatever reason, it was defaulting to the MacBook mic instead of my pod mic here.
So, what's the best time to cover Back to the Future? November 5th, which it will be in a few hours. So,
yeah, we're close. We're close.
At least to the day that Doc invented time travel that Marty travels to in the first movie. So, figured why not?
Yeah, we've been doing this show for almost 5 years, and we've never gotten around to this movie.
We've talked about various things about Back to the Future. I can't remember what it is, somewhere in the first season of our podcast, we talked about Back to the Future, but it wasn't like a review. And I think we might have reviewed Back to the Future too, or we talked about it as well, but we never even got as far as 3, and we need to get there at some point because I did a video on my channel recently about the packaging for the 25th anniversary Blu-ray sucking balls.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Last Movie Standing, that's his channel. It's a good channel. You should check it out if you're interested. But he did a video, or he didn't do a video. He was talking to me about how the Back to the Future transfers from that aren't the best anyway. And if you look at the ones, shit, I might even be making that up.
Oh, fuck.
Now I'm thinking I had this sort of similar conversation with 2 people.
Now he's just down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, no. Actually, you know who that conversation was with? Matt Provençal. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So, sorry. But yeah, he sent and said that he got rid of that set and upgraded to the one after it, the 35th anniversary. Has a better bitrate, less digital noise than the 25th anniversary versions. The biggest jump in quality is Back to the Future 3. Transfer looks like it was shot yesterday.
Nice. That's good to know. So I have digital copies of this, obviously, and VHS and Blu-ray and DVD.
Yeah. Who wouldn't?
Excuse me. I need a fucking quick mute button on here.
I do want to upgrade my Back to the Future set, but I'm going to keep that other one for archiving reasons.
So, and I feel like the artwork for that is trash, but that's also at a point in time where everyone was just trying to do like the most Photoshop-esque bullshit.
Well, yeah, it's not bad. They use the original assets for it, but like at the same time, it just doesn't. Hold on.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because when you look at classic VHS covers, there's a reason those look classic, right? Yeah, and that's not.
It's not the worst. Let's just say that it's not the best, but
no, I'd have to get out my box set because that's just put away. currently the only thing I have on display are 4Ks and some other box sets, but
Okay.
technically, since that's a 3-pack,
So
it should
I
go
will
up.
say that this one looks pretty bad. Especially if you look at Marty's face up close, it looks like AI'd upscaling shit.
Yeah.
Even if it's not AI, it's upscaling of some sort and it looks like trash anyway. Sorry.
So I was watching the HD version of this, and there's some scenes in this with the digital version that look absolutely incredible still. And I'm not sure. The problem with owning like a digital asset like that, is it's hosted on a server. You can download it in varying degrees of quality, but you don't know like what they're actually upgrading when they do a new home video release.
Hmm.
And I feel like for the original Back to the Future, that looked really nice when I watched it. There was some details and things like that that I hadn't really paid super close attention to, but it's also one of those comfort movies that like I have no idea the first time I ever watched this movie. I knew that we had it recorded on a VHS at home, and it was like one of the movies we recorded off HBO or something like that. So
I can't recall the exact first time, but I recall like the first time I cognitively like actually saw it.
okay.
And I was maybe like 9 or 10 years old. I saw the first one, and then Mom was like, "Yeah, there's 2 more," and I was like, "I gotta make it happen." And then I shortly
Yeah.
after saw those, and then became just obsessed in general, and here we are.
Yeah. There's a lot of fine detail in that movie that I think is easy to underappreciate in that. Now, granted, there's a huge following of fans of Back to the Future, right? It's one of the things that, right, clearly Ghostbusters is my biggest collecting passion. Back to the Future, though, I've got a decent little stash, and you can't really see it, but it's the shelf down here, and I've got all the NECA figures, and those look really nice. And the bonus accessory set. And I really wish they would have done some other characters because it's just Biff, different versions of Biff, Marty, and Doc. Now, granted, those all look amazing, and the accessory set they released from Back to the Future 2 was amazing. But man, there's just so many good side characters in that movie that really would have done well in a plastic form.
Well, I mean, they were never going to get Crispin Glover, but it would have been cool to see because I like Crispin Glover, but I understand fully why he wouldn't do it. But yeah, I would have even liked to see Back to the Future 3 versions of at least Doc and Marty.
At least just give us the 2 of those. I mean, you did plenty of Back to the Future 2. I mean, shit. I mean, if you're just going to use those same 3 characters, Mad Dog,
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Tana would be fine. That'd be a great one. Like just the cowboy figures. I don't feel like, and even just for people that are toy collectors in general, like having some of those classic looking toys would have been amazing for that because it's not like you see a lot of modern cowboy toys, right?
Yeah.
And if you do, they're like cheaply produced, like cowboy and Indian style things that are like, just haven't aged really well. So,
Yeah, well. So let's talk about some of the shit we like about this movie.
yeah. So, I mean, for me, this movie starts off with so much awesomeness, right? And the foreshadowing that's going on throughout this movie early on, the subtleties, like I said, man, there's just so many details they put into this movie that they didn't even have to. But it just makes that movie so much more enjoyable when you catch them. Like, obviously, we see the plutonium stashed away in Doc's office or
Yeah,
garage.
as well as the news report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those are things that are like there the first time. And so, like, if you're not paying attention, like, that's easy to overlook.
Yeah.
Like, as a kid, I always remember being fascinated by Doc's inventions and, like, the dog food invention to feed Einstein and those things. Like,
it's just like seeing, Pee-wee's, anything Pee-wee, to be honest. And also Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, like the...
yes, it very much falls in with those, like, mad scientist inventor vibes, and it really just captivates you. And then the guitar and everything else, like, immediately, like, okay, Marty's kind of a He's a little bit of an outsider, but he's a pretty cool kid. And then, as a kid, I was like, hey, it's the same guy from Top Gun when we see the principal, right?
Oh yeah.
And, that was like Ghostbusters, Top Gun, and Back to the Future were like 3 movies I watched over and over just because we had VHS copies of them. So it was like 3 movies that was like, what do you want to watch? Somebody in a flight suit or a mad scientist with a flying traveling car?
Mhm.
Pick your poison. So, well, I guess the car didn't fly in the original until the very end, but you get the picture.
Yeah.
And then we have the real life version of the meme where Marty's checking out the girls in the dance studio and the other girls right in front of his girlfriend. That's such a hilarious scene now
Oh yeah.
because like everyone talks about that and you're like, no man, it just goes way back even before that meme was even a thing.
Oh, for sure. There's a pretty funny Super Bowl ad with Michael J. Fox, like borderline having a threesome in like a Pepsi commercial. I
Yeah.
don't know why that just came to mind when you were talking about that.
Well, then we're still talking the foreshadowing there, and like she writes the number down on the Save the Clock Tower paper, which is perfect. I mean, because they tie this thing so neatly together and it's presented in such a beautiful fashion that, like, really the fact that this story comes together this neatly is incredible. Now, the whole incest thing of it, yeah, it's a little weird, right? I think, that makes it uncomfortable, but it's still highly watchable. And then, like, obviously it pans out when she's like, oh, that was like kissing my brother. So, like, it's a little uncomfortable to see until you get to that point where she realizes it's gross. And then it's like, okay, really takes the turn for the movie there. So the storytelling is pretty phenomenal. Doc Brown is so good in there too. You know what it means? It means this thing doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about Christopher Lloyd specifically in this movie more than anything else that's just magical.
Well, when you think about all the turmoil this movie had, right? I mean, I think by now everyone knows that Eric Stoltz was cast as Marty. They didn't really like how the film was coming out, so they essentially negotiated with Family Ties to get Michael J. Fox in there to shoot this thing, and so he was doing double duty, sleeping on his way to and from, and ultimately, I think that was probably the best thing he ever did for his career because, right, people love Family Ties, but I've never watched Family Ties. I mean, I've seen episodes of it when I was a kid, but I've never gone back and rewatched the series.
Yeah, I haven't gone and rewatched that one either.
Now, that would be fascinating to see, like, the star power that he had on that show compared to how he panned out here in the movie. And then, there's a lot of, what was it? The one movie executive wanted to call it like Spaceman from Pluto or something and like was kind of combative about the title of the movie. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
It just, the lore behind this is like so many things that set this movie up to fail. All these obstacles were overcome, and we got basically one of the most amazing movies ever made. And I will say, hands down, the trilogy is way better than it has any right to be. Right?
Absolutely. Like, you grow up and you're thinking like Back to the Future 3 is the least exciting one, that it's not great. But like, I don't know, at a certain point, you're like, wait a minute. No, this completes the trilogy and the arcs that were introduced in 2, which that makes sense because they were fulfilled that way. But like, for example, the whole thing about chicken,
Mm-hmm.
that's introduced in Back to the Future 2. And it's like concluded in 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something from the first movie, although you'd think it is because they just kind of work so well together. You'd think it was a planned trilogy. But that's also because of the open ending of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But like, they work so well as an arching trilogy. Like, you get character development for basically his parents in the first movie,
Mm-hmm.
and then him in the second movie, and a little bit in the third, but Doc in the third.
Yeah.
They get their little story arc,
Well, the most incredible thing is, right, the first movie goes to the past for Marty's sake, right? And so Doc is in his prime there. Or not, I wouldn't even say his prime, right? He's in his youth as far as being a scientist goes. And then the second movie, we go to the future, right? And so we see an older version of Marty and we see that. And then we're able to take them both completely out of their element for Back to the Future 3. And now Doc gets to try and travel to the past. Like when we think about the original movie, Doc's there in the present and the past. And so his character has less of a growth story arc in the original just because, right, we see him decide that he's going to read that letter after all, so he tapes it back together. That's perfect the way that all plays out. But seeing Doc be able to go to the past and have that experience himself really is what makes that movie so good, because he's able to have his own story arc. Marty's there as his assistant in that one more than anything else.
Yeah.
Now, the whole family thing at the very end of that movie, the ending's probably the cheesiest of all three endings, just with like the traveling train and all that other stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't mind it. But just when you look at things that feels the most out of place out of everything in the trilogy. Just
Yeah,
that little bit of stuff at the end.
Thankfully, it helps set up the cartoon
Animated series, yeah,
I
exactly.
have the entire animated series on DVD.
Didn't they include that in one of the box sets, I think, at one point in time?
I don't know. I have a separate box for it because I like
Okay.
that.
Yeah. That was only like 2 seasons, but they did a short run of that. And then I think an animated series had a Happy Meal run at one point in time, I think.
I
Or
have
a
some of
Kids
those
Meal run.
figures too.
Yeah. Yeah, and those
The
look pretty cool.
I have
Yeah.
the hoverboard one, and then there's NECA did a figure line for it too. I have that as well.
Oh, yeah.
They were supposed to make a DeLorean. They showed a prototype for it in the cartoon, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to get it. But they didn't ever produce it, so.
Yeah, that was one of those things. The rights management to a good toy line from this has always been botched, mostly due to the Crispin Glover thing, right? I feel like had they not essentially screwed him over so bad for Back to the Future 2, it would have been drastically different. But I mean, even as a kid, you're like, why isn't Marty's dad in this movie at all? Like, it's all Lorraine again and Biff. And you're like, okay, that's fine. But you realize that, oh, that's the story arc they had to take because they didn't like Crispin Glover. And you're like, I get it. The guy is kind of in his own world, to say, but like,
he wanted to be paid the same as the other people. Bob Gale was like, no. And I'm going to steal your face.
Yeah.
I will take Crispin Glover's side over Bob Gale's any day.
Yeah. And that's that. I mean, I think that's the right stance to have, right? When you think about it, like there was laws enacted about likenesses and everything else. And that was a huge turning point for how that was handled in Hollywood. No one ever really talks about that because the trilogy is so well done that it's hard to stop and think about that controversial point and be like, oh, fuck, man, they're kind of scumbags.
Yep.
Which is weird because you're usually conflicted, like separating the art from the artist. But I wonder how good that trilogy could have been had we seen more Crispin Glover in there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it does allow them to do something different in each of the movies without having to like repeat everything in the same way. So it's interesting that aspect, but and then the principal comes back in Back to the Future 2 and Back to the Future 3. So I like how the surrounding cast like has some additional roles where they show up, right? I thought that was really well done.
Well, it's funny the way they do that for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Marty ends up playing his daughter and his like great-great-grandfather or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
Great, I don't know.
But back to that original, though, man, when you just think about all the things that are so well done in that, right? The Twin Pines Mall, going to the Lone Pine Mall, just so many of the little subtleties in there.
Huey Lewis, Alan Silvestri.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're in the band.
All the Goldie Wilson for mayor stuff at the beginning of the movie that's just kind of there, and it's like you don't notice that until you've watched this movie a few times.
Yeah, well, you don't realize that that's when, hey, yeah, I'm gonna be mayor, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh man, yeah, the writing on that all around is so good, and then
The clock tower setup.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, okay, I'm gonna write down the number to my grandma's house. Here's how, here's the flyer for that, and then oh, I have it right here, right? It all adds up.
Yep.
Weather experiments, the enchantment under the sea dance, like that was just so awesome. The birthday cake.
Yeah. Well, it's just even dumb things like the birthday cake are iconic now. Like
Mm-hmm.
all of the obviously the DeLorean, but the truck,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the Darth Vader outfit.
Yeah, from Planet Vulcan. Excuse me. Yeah. But like Marty's truck is iconic now. It's like a classic part of the lore. It even got its Playmobil vehicle release as part of that. They got its own Hot Wheels release from the movie now, like all these things that really just have added up to make this thing pretty incredible.
Yes. Indeed.
Trying to think, the only thing in the movie that like I always find a little bit cringeworthy, the original, right? And it's not a huge thing, but it's just a subtle thing for me. It's the hey, Chuck, this is your cousin Marvin. Like
Yeah.
here's the Chuck Berry song. And to me, that would go over much better. But they clearly just have someone covering the song.
Mm-hmm.
And so like to me that like first of all, I'm not a huge fan of that cover of that. Like I think they don't do Chuck Berry justice in that cover of that song in the movie. But the rest of the stuff's pretty good.
Well, the voice is just so weird. It's so jarring. Like I remember as a kid even being like, "What the fuck?" I'm used to it now. It's like built into the movie, obviously,
Yeah.
but whew,
But the other songs Marvin Berry and the Starlighters do, man, like
yeah,
Earth Angel and all that, those are like real, real solid takes on those songs.
yeah. I
So
wish I
it's
had a
very
recording of
enjoyable.
that version.
Mm-hmm. Yes, me too. Because it's not on the soundtrack. Because trust me, I've got that.
Same.
Got it
I have
on.
the cassette tape.
I have a vintage CD. I have a vintage record, and then I have a re-release record on colored vinyl.
Mine's right here.
All of which I will gladly show you now. But that iconic box art and poster art for that first movie is so good, and then the fact that they're able to kind of replicate that for 2 and 3 in its own way. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like that art?
It's beautiful.
It's iconic.
All of these old poster artworks like that. And
Mhm.
people are trying to like recreate these. I just don't think they're adding grain or something. Like they're using airbrush stuff in Photoshop.
Mhm.
And it comes like 90, 95% the way there to looking like stuff like this. Or the old Star Wars posters, I don't know the guy who did all this artwork, but they had one guy that did a lot of this stuff.
Oh, the paintings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the very iconic looking ones that are just better than anything modern, obviously.
Well, that's the problem is now it's so easy to take those assets, the digital assets, take photos and kind of blend those into a mock-up, and you don't ever have that hand-painted stuff like you really used to. Which I get it, you're streamlining it, but there's also artists out there that would do it for a reasonable price, I'm sure. So, but yeah, to me, I think that's something that's the classic poster art's truly a lost art form. Now, I will say the Late Night with the Devil poster that came out, one of those looks really, really solid.
Yeah, there's a few of those. I'm not saying every one of them that comes out.
Oh,
I'm
no.
not even necessarily talking about big studios. I'm thinking of more like people recreating them
Oh, on their
own. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing that this movie's had some issues with, obviously, like the DVD releases and some of the early Blu-ray releases, if you're not doing a new scan every time of the actual film, you're basically upscaling or upconverting a low quality transfer. So you're not going to get the best quality, right? So really to get a good version of that, you need to do that so you can actually see the film grain. Which, yes, like it was shot on film. I want to see the film grain on the 4K. Like that's just part of the process. That's how it should be.
They've released this on 4K, right?
Yeah, they have recently.
How does it look?
I haven't really done any comparisons on any of that yet.
I haven't heard anything about it, so I'm assuming it
Let me
looks good.
see. I know they're selling. Yeah, they got the 4K Ultra HD set. I don't know. I need to read about that and see like what, if they did a true upscaling on all this, because this has that box art you showed me a little bit ago with the classic cover on there. Well, not even the classic cover. It's the whole characters from All in Time with the time machine on the front.
Where it combines them, so it's Marty from the first movie,
Yep.
Doc from the second, maybe?
Yeah.
Or is it from, okay, and then
it's Doc from 3, Crispin Glover, Marty, which I don't even know why they chose that photo of Marty.
like the weird heads one?
Yeah, he looks like he's pooping or something. Like, you're not doing
a 35th anniversary set?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah. Pretty interesting stuff there, though.
Yeah, that's the same as the 35th anniversary packaging.
Okay, yeah, so they must have released it all for the 35th and the 4K. No, this says the release date was June 4th, 2024.
Okay, so yeah, also a Back to the Future 30th anniversary trilogy and complete animated series was released. And that one has the cover is the back of the DeLorean and just Back to the Future on the top.
Nice.
Back to the Future, 4K. 35th anniversary future 4K trilogy steelbook set. Only $300? Wow.
It's a pretty good price right now on Amazon. You can get it for $32 for the 4K set. Which that's probably ripe for me to upgrade to. Don't have that on 4K yet, so.
Yeah. I really want to get Signs just came out. I want to get The Thing, Nightmare on Elm Street, Lost Boys, Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2. There's like Halloween 3 I need to get before it's gone, like out of print.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying. I'm debating if I even want to get the Twister 4K because screenshots I've seen, I'm like, damn, it's just worth it to keep on. Just get a blue. I don't even know if I have it on Blu-ray. I think I have DVD and VHS. I have to check.
Yeah, I was getting annoyed for a while, because stuff that I had on VHS, then getting the DVD, and then getting the Blu-ray, and then like the anniversary Blu-ray and everything else. So,
right.
I mean, since I got Twisters on 4K Steelbook, I wanted Twister on 4K Steelbook, so I got the import version of that. But if I just saw the regular Walmart version, I don't know if I'd be super quick to like run out and get it.
The 4K is on sale for $21.36 on Amazon right now.
Nice.
And Twister's 4K is $29.95.
Yeah, I mean, so Back to the Future, it's just one of those beloved franchises, man. It's hard to. There's not a lot about it that I would nitpick, right? And I know a lot of people would say the Star Wars trilogy is like their favorite trilogy of all time. But if I'm going by a true trilogy in the sense of the term, like Back to the Future is probably my number one overall trilogy. Just because I feel like all entries are real solid. The writing of 2 and 3 was written and shot back to back, so it made sense. They're able to really think things through. They took their time. They didn't rush to write a sequel to it. They easily could have waited even longer. It took 4 years before they were able to get the next one out.
I don't know. I don't know if I would say Back to the Future or Lord of the Rings.
Now, see, I still haven't seen that stuff. So. Wish people out there. I'm surprised no one gives me more shit about that. I'm gonna get around to that this winter. I think that's gonna be something we're gonna talk about.
I am going to be covering those, and I'm going to be watching. I've seen the Hobbit cartoon, but I have not seen the other two Lord of the Rings cartoons, Lord of the Rings and Return of the King. So I'm going to watch all three of those and all three of the live-action movies to review ahead of the release of there's a new animated movie called War for Rohirrim in December coming out in theaters.
Yeah. So I'll eventually get around to checking that out. But for me, the Back to the Future trilogy is pretty fine. Pretty solid.
I agree. It's probably better than Star Wars for me now. As a kid, I probably would have found that sacrilege, but
I mean, even as a kid, though, for me, like, I didn't get on the Star Wars train until the re-releases or before then. You're right. Once they started talking about the re-releases and once the Star Wars Power of the Force toy line like came into play in the early 90s before all that, it was like kind of when I started getting into it. One of my friends.
and I was 5 in 1996, so
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
it was like there for me earlier
Yeah.
than you.
Yeah, and so like one of my best friends growing up, one of his neighbors is a huge Star Wars fan, and so is his brother. And so they had a pretty big selection of the old like Star Wars toys that they'd gotten at like garage sales and stuff to have in their collection. It was pretty cool to see that. And yeah, pretty cool when that all came out. But overall, the rewatchability for me is Back to the Future. And I guess the other thing with Back to the Future is that they've been as bad as they fucked up with handling Crispin Glover on that. They have done a good job of just saying, hey, we're not going to make any more of these. We're not going to reboot it in our lifetime. So we're going to be dead before we allow that to happen. Great. I do quite enjoy that. Like, I think that's a pretty solid choice.
Sorry, I'm just looking at 4K still because I got distracted. Pulp Fiction
Yeah.
1750 on 4K. That's not a bad deal.
Yeah, there's some classic stuff out there, man. You can get the good stuff.
They're putting out I can't remember who's putting it out, but a really dope box set for Inglourious Bastards on 4K. So,
Oh, nice.
It's my favorite Tarantino movie. I'm going to want to pick that one up.
So sad local news. If you're from the Kansas City area, one of our 2 last remaining drive-ins announced it's closing permanently today.
Yeah, we saw that.
The Twin Drive-In, currently owned by B&B Theaters, basically said that the landlord was trying to jack up the lease rate by like 350% or something stupid asinine. So essentially forcing him to close. But we still got the Boulevard. So, I mean, I love going to the drive-in. It's great with kids, man. Let the little one pass out and you get 2 for 1 and, it's casual, really relaxed.
Yeah.
Super disappointing because I saw so many movies at the drive-in as a kid. Shit, even as an adult, just in the last couple of years, I've really started enjoying going again.
For sure.
So they're going to do a couple of things the last couple of weekends. I think this coming weekend they're going to show Jurassic Park and the Goonies as a double feature. And then the last weekend they're ever going to be open, they are going to show Elf and Christmas Vacation. So,
damn.
Yeah. Elf is one of those movies that I enjoy. I'm not as diehard a fanatic about it as others are, but it's grown on me over the years. And Christmas Vacation I love, but man, I'm really feeling like the Jurassic Park and Goonies is the last time I'm going to go out there, depending on how things look this weekend weather-wise.
I've seen Jurassic Park in the theater, not Goonies. But I have not seen Christmas Vacation. That's a drive-in, so it's technically a little different, but I don't know. I don't like Elf is okay to me. Like,
yeah,
I'll watch it. Like, maybe not every season, but every couple or something. But Christmas Vacation, as you know, is a staple, so as it is for many of us in our age range.
Yeah. So Christmas Vacation, I've seen.
Oh, we got a comment.
A couple of times.
Bronson Wright Wolf said, "I've always liked Michael J. Fox as Stuart Little."
Oh yeah, that's a pretty good one too.
Which is interesting. He's also the voice of Chance in Homeward Bound, right?
Yeah, I watched that with the kids not too long ago because it was on Disney Plus, and it was a house of animal fans, animal lovers. It's a good movie to watch.
Really?
Homeward Bound, yeah, it's fun for the kids, man. It's not a movie I'd watch on my own, but because I had children around, it was like worth checking out.
pretty sure.
The old guy that was one of the brothers from Trading Places that made the bet against Dan Aykroyd and you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Did the voice of that. What's his name?
My mind is drawing a blank because I'm doing research. I'm pretty sure that. Okay. It's not as bad as I thought.
Or the movie?
Yeah. There were animals killed during the making of Milo and Otis.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was apparently 5 drowned cats, 4 mauled cats, 2 cats pecked to death, 1 cat swallowed by a snake, 3 drowned dogs, 2 mauled dogs.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know if this is all 100% true, so take it with a grain of salt. But I've heard that before. Homeward Bound was like also fucking up some animals on set, but I don't think they necessarily killed any, which is I guess better.
Yeah. Okay, so Shadow, the voice in Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey, was voiced by Don Amick, and I believe that's how you say his name. But he was in Trading Places. It was one of the first movies I remember seeing him in. Obviously, his filmography dates back to 1935, so an incredible career in Hollywood.
Bronson said, "My favorite Christmas movie is A Christmas Story. Elf is my least favorite Christmas movie." And then he said Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy were in Trading Places.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Yeah,
I
Michael J.
watch
Fox.
that every Christmas season, though.
Yeah, it's a classic. That's a good between Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Obviously, the Christmas scene.
We can forget the blackface scene, though. We can cut that out. Cut that.
Yeah, that didn't age well. I mean, obviously, there's tons of shit from the 70s, 80s, and even 90s that just hasn't aged well. And you're like, they should have. I mean, like, do you change that for cultural sensitivity nowadays, or do you just like leave it be and be like, well, look how fucking wild things used to be?
I would just be curious as to what Eddie Murphy would say about it now, to be honest, more than Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, I mean, Dan's the one that did it, but he was on set with Eddie. So
because if Eddie Murphy was like, "Fuck it, dude," it was back then, and shit, I'd be like, "Okay, we can let it slide. I'm not gonna think it's funny anymore, but like we can." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I feel that for sure. It's
because he's the one. He's sitting across from him in that scene.
Yeah.
Bronson says, "Have you guys seen The Frighteners? Michael J. Fox is in it. He should have made more horror movies before he was diagnosed with Parkinson's." Yes, I have that on DVD.
Yeah, I have that. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I know I've got a digital copy. I don't know if I got that on DVD or Blu-ray. I can't remember which one it is. Frighteners is amazing. Now, Frighteners, he actually went to shoot after he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, because he was diagnosed several years before he ever told the public. And like, he had that documentary come out within the last 2 years, I want to say. And that's really good if you haven't seen that, because in that he talks about the Frighteners specifically, that he went and shot that in New Zealand basically to get away and hide from the fact that he had Parkinson's and didn't know what to do with it. So he's basically like, yeah, I just kind of, was avoiding reality and went and shot out of the country so I didn't have to be bothered by everything else. And it was kind of reality avoidance for him to do that movie, which I love that movie. It's Ghostbusters adjacent, classic film. Love it.
Yeah. Peter Jackson obviously directed that, and I like all of his weird shit that he did before Lord of the Rings, Bad Taste, and Dead Alive. So
that is kind of crazy that I love a bunch of his old shit, but I have not seen his Lord of the Rings trilogy. So, I mean, I guess I should probably get around to that. We need to put that on the schedule for this winter time.
And he did the King Kong remake from 2005, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big production at the time.
It's all right.
Yeah. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was pretty decent. It's like Conan O'Brien used to say about the Olive Garden. He's like, yeah, it's pretty good for the price.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's pretty much what I got for this tonight. So, I mean, you got any final thoughts on this thing?
Final thoughts.
Yeah.
I guess it's going to be a while before we do Back to the Future 2 because we need to cover that in October, don't we?
I mean, if we're going to go by the dates in the movie, then yeah. I mean, we don't have to. If we have a lull in movie releases over the wintertime, we could do that. But
Yeah, we can always say fuck it.
we are going to have to fit in the Lord of the Rings trilogy for sure. That's going to be a winter. Sometime between now and spring, we'll get to those three.
We did review Dead Alive early on in the podcast. I don't think we ever did. Did we ever do Bad Taste? Might have done it. I think we did Dead Alive, but not Bad Taste.
I thought we did both of them. I know we watched both of them, but we may just watch those to go through them. Because Bad Taste, was that also not referred to as Brain Dead?
No, that's Dead Alive.
That's Dead Alive. Okay, I know. Then we watched that one for sure.
Yeah, that's the one that's super splattery.
Yeah,
like it's insane amounts of gore, and there's a lot of gore in Bad Taste, but it was like budget, and it was shot over 4 years. This is like his first real kind of.
We watched both of those because I remember talking about it because like you could see the lapses in time a little bit with some of the cast and everything.
Yeah,
which I get, man. Like some of that stuff is as a passion project, especially when you're shooting on film and how much that shit costs.
Yeah, I have the DVD of Bad Taste in my bedroom right now. I need to make a video on that for my channel sometime.
Yeah.
It's just so weird, man.
Wild at times.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps us up for tonight. So thanks for tuning in and watching, and we'll see you back at it next week with some more nonsense.
Yeah. Thanks for stopping by, Bronson. Thanks for chatting with us.
Yeah. We'll see you back at it next week, hopefully.
Thanks for stopping by. Good night.